Aloha and welcome to sunny Southeast Michigan. I am the draft specialist with another episode of the Beer Style Series. Today we're going to talk about amber and red ales. Now, amber ales are my all-time favorite of all-time style. Why? Well, because with good practice you can taste every ingredient. They pair wonderfully with every type of food, and they fit just about every occasion. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's ask ourselves two questions. One, where do they come from, and why are they named that? The why is pretty simple. Simply, it's their color. They are amber or they're red. The where are, well, it goes back centuries ago in history. They were created in Belgium as a session ale, which means essentially season. With that being said, in the early 1980s was a breakout era for amber ales. Reds a little bit later as they weren't quite as varied at the time. Now, ambers are very closely related to English bitters and ESBs. The key characteristic difference between the two would be that red is generally lighter in body, but higher in ABV and IBUs. Now, that's not always the case. It depends on the beer and the brewery. There are characteristics that classify beers. One, of course, being color, next ABV, IBUs, and then flavor profiles and the like. First with color, again, goes back to the beer SRM. Amber and red fall right in the middle. They are given a numerical value in the SRM, and you'll see they're right in between straw, really light, and black or coffee opaque, which is very, very dark. The next characteristic, of course, for beer classification would be through IBUs. IBUs is perceived bitterness. That is strictly due to the ingredient of hops. There can be single hopped, there can be many hopped, there can even be dry hopped. That is your perceived bitterness. Now, ambers are a little bit on the lower scale, from 20 to 40 IBUs, while reds have a varied scale of about 25 to 100 IBUs. And again, we'll get into vocab and definitions in another video. The next would be ABV. ABV strictly is alcohol content. Now, ambers generally have about 4.5% to about 6%, give or take, while reds have, again, a more varied from 5% to 10% ABV. That is, the two main ingredients that affect ABV are malt and yeast. So we're going to get into the flavor profile. With the malt, you're going to get your sweetness, or your bakery, if you will. It'll range from your burnt sugar to toffee to caramel. That is also where you derive your color, whether they're roasted or a specific style of malt. Your bitterness is going to be from hops. Hops are going to, again, they're going to be either single hopped or a variety of hops. That's where you're going to get your bitterness flavor from. Your yeast produces, of course, your alcohol, but it also creates phenols and esters. Esters are usually what you're going to taste in an ale, different from a lager. Again, we'll get into that in another video. But the general flavor from esters that you'll get in an amber or a red are going to be a bit fruity, to sometimes somewhat spicy, if you will. You'll get into like an anise flavor, or all the way to like a banana flavor, depending on the amber or the red. Now, there are four key factors to a good amber or a red that aren't necessarily the beer itself. One is carbonation. The next is your storage. Following is your serving. And finally, glassware. Now, carbonation, of course, is in the beer. Most carbonation is measured in volume of CO2. Most of your amber and reds are going to be right around 2.5 volumes of CO2. Your local retailer won't normally know that. Your local distributor also won't really know that. But if you are beer savvy, have your own kegerator, and want to dial in your PSIs precisely to what the brewery wants you to have, call the brewery. Call the brewmaster. Usually the sales manager knows as well. The next one that we will be covering is storage. Storage is key. Now, most amber and reds, they want you to enjoy fresh as possible, unless otherwise denoted on the bottle or packaging. Storage should always be in a dark, cool place, and highly recommend if you're going to chill it at 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, the why for that we will add in another video. The next is serving. Serving is very important. Some beers prefer to be poured hard, some prefer to be poured lightly. Some you can enjoy out of a bottle or a can. Others, of course, the brewery always wants you to have it out of a keg. That is the closest you can have to brewery taste. And finally, glassware. Glassware is a key component to enjoying a delicious beer. The right glass, believe it or not, will make certain flavors pop and others seem a little bit more subtle. I do have a few beers here for you that I'll go over briefly, and then I will open and pour one and enjoy with you. The first one is from Right Brain. It is the Northern Hawk Owl. They are from Traverse City. This comes in at 5.8% ABV. They do use 4 different types of malt. That's going to be your color. That's going to be your sweetness. They want you to enjoy this one as fresh as possible. The next one I'm going to have, now all of these except for one are going to be from Michigan. So what we have here is Mountain Town's Trainwreck. They are from Mount Pleasant, and this one is a bit of a butt kicker. It comes in at 8.2%. The reason that you're going to have a little bit more flavor and higher ABV is it says right on here, it is brewed with maple syrup and honey. Sugar. What does yeast eat? Sugar. What does yeast produce with that sugar? Alcohol, or ethanol to be more precise. But again, we'll get in that in another video. Now these beers especially, I have my own amber glass. This glass I use strictly for ambers. The reason being it's very wide at the top, narrower at the bottom, a bit beveled, so you don't have to pour quite as hard to get a decent head out of it. That I would highly recommend for all ambers or reds, except for one which I'll go over here shortly. I do have 2 that are labeled. One by Smittix. It is an Irish ale. This is a delicious red. Again, very wide at the top, narrow at the bottom, beveled so you can pour a nice even head. The other, of course, Killian's Irish Red. Very wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. Again, they all seem to fit a similar profile. The next beer I'm going to go over is Founders Dankwood. This is part of their barrel aged series. This is an IRA, which is essentially an India red ale. Again, we'll go over that in a different style. That'll be in another beer style series. This beer, Founders being from Grand Rapids, this beer comes in at 12.2%. This is a butt kicker of a beer, no doubt. I, however, prefer to pour it in my 11-ounce glass. The reason being, you're going to pour this beer, you're going to get about 10 ounces out of it, about an ounce worth of head is going to fill the top. It's very wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. Because it's barrel aged, it has a little bit lower volume of CO2, so you can pour this one harder to get a good head out of it. This is in my personal collection. I highly recommend getting it when it comes back out next year. The next one I'm going to open up for you, it is Bell's Amber Ale. This is the beer that helped build the brewery. This is a great Michigan amber. This one I'm going to pour directly into my amber glass. Open it up here for you. So make sure you hold your glass at 45 degrees. Pour the beer right down the side, nice and easy. Once the beer touches the flow, you're going to pour right down the middle. And that's going to get you a bit of your head. As you can see, we've got about a 1/2 inch of head, nice amber color all the way through. It's a 12-ounce bottle in a 16 ounce or a pint glass. This one's delicious. You're gonna get very herbal and citrusy hops from the aroma. You're gonna get a nice subtle sweetness from the malt, and it's just brewed to perfection. Now, two other ambers that I highly, highly, highly recommend once you find them seasonally. The first being also from Bell's. They are out of Comstock. Now, this is their Roundhouse. It is only available in the fall time of year. It's at 7.5%. This is what I consider Hop Slam's redheaded stepchild. It's hopped really, really well, so you get a lot of hops, a lot of aroma, a little bit of bitterness from it, and it is also brewed with honey, which gives that boost in ABV. The other one, which is my all-time favorite of all time, is Great Lakes Conway's Irish Ale. This is brewed in Cleveland, comes in at 6.3% ABV this year, usually ranges between 6 and 6.6% depending on the year. Once you have a sip of this, you'll understand why this is my all-time favorite of all time. It's only available during the St. Paddy's Day time of year for about 3 months out of the year. So if you ever find Roundhouse or Irish Conway, please, please, please give me a call because we will share one together. This has been the Draft Specialist signing off. Cheers. Aloha.